What we've been doing so far with 12.4 is we might have had to find a missing angle because we needed it to be across from the side that was given, but that was just given two angles, find the third angle. No big deal there, okay? Add and subtract from 180. You guys did that on your quiz, you did good at that, you did it in your homework, no problem. There are going to be some problems like what we're going to see today where they only give you one angle, okay? And so they're going to give us two sides. And so we're going to need to find a missing angle. And the setup is all going to basically be the same, okay? The difference is what we were doing before, we were always looking for a side. And now there's an extra step, sort of, when we have to find that angle. Let's look at this example. You can take a picture of this, okay? Take a picture of this problem, and we'll kind of go through it and talk about how this is a little bit different from what we've been doing. We're still, the same idea is going to exist. Do we have the opposite side angle combination where we know both measures? What are they? Okay, so C, 112 degrees, the side C is 10. So we have that. And that's, again, it's still critical because that means I can set that ratio up, okay? And then since I'm looking for angle B, which is opposite from the side that's given, okay, that's my other opposite side angle combination. And the reality is I'm just trying to find angle B. Okay, so my second part of my ratio, the rest of the proportion, ends up being sine of B over 7. So how this is different is before we had the variable down here and we knew what this measure was. Okay, now you got to keep in mind something. Whenever we use trig functions to find an angle, what did we have to use actually? The inverse function. Okay, that's still going to come into play here. So because I'm looking for angle B, I'm going to eventually use the inverse function of sine. So I can cross multiply and divide just like we did before with proportions, okay? In this case, however, I'm not going to do it all in one step because that B is stuck in there with the sine function. So when I cross multiply, okay, and divide, I still divide by this missing part, okay? So meaning we know these two, so I multiply those. We divide by the part that's with the variable, which is the 10. And that equals sine B. So if you remember when we did it before, this would have said sine of some angle, right? But because I'm looking for B, I still have the sine B. Now, in order to get rid of this sine, I need to take the inverse of both sides. So here's where it changes a little bit. Okay, so when I take the inverse function of both sides, what really happens now, and it happens over here, is the inverse sine of the sine. Those two, since they are inverse operations, they cancel each other out, and then I just have B. So I get B by itself. So here's what's really important. Okay, you're looking for an angle. You're going to deal with the inverse function. In here, again, we talked about this before. It's imperative that you close the parentheses around that angle. Because if you don't, you're going to do 7 times the sine of 11.2. Right? It'll divide it by 10. Make sure that's closed just like it was before. And go ahead and enter that in your calculator. It wants us to round to the nearest hundredth, so let's see what you get for that angle. Get 8? No. 40.47 is what you should have gotten. Now, make sure that you entered it in your calculator properly. Okay, so double check that. Okay. So it's the inverse sine. So when you cross multiply and divide, the only difference is that you have to watch out for this inverse sine. Okay? If you want to skip from here to here, that's okay. Just understand that in order to get the B by itself, you will have to take the inverse sine of both sides. Okay? Now, Once you find that second angle, so for the next example, we're going to actually solve the triangle. Once you find that second angle, then it's easy to find a third angle. We go back to going, all right, add them together, subtract from 180. Don't use a trig function again to do that. Okay. Any questions so far? All right, let's look at this problem. Go ahead and put this in your notes. You can write it down. There's really nothing to... It'd probably be easier to write it down than take a picture of it, honestly. Solving the triangle. That means find all the missing parts. We've talked about that before. So what are the things I need to find? What are the missing parts? Angle B, angle C, and side C. Okay? So I'm looking for angle, measure of angle B, measure of angle C, and side C. I don't care if you put the M in front. That's fine if you don't. If you want to leave this off, you can. It's going to show up on the next slide again, but if you just wrote it like that, that's okay too. And again, like I've talked about before, I like to identify the things I'm looking for. Sort of keeps me on track, so I know that I found all the things. Now, do I have that opposite side angle combination where I know both of them? What ones? A and A. Angle A, side A. Okay, so there I have my opposite side angle combination. And since I'm given side B, I'm forced to find what first? Side or angle? Angle B. I have to find angle B first. That's my only choice based on the information they're given. The only thing I can find right now is the one that goes with side B, and that has to be angle B. Okay? So why don't you go ahead and try to find angle B on your own, and we'll see what you come up with. Don't keep finishing the problem yet, because I just want to make sure that we get angle B right first. So yeah, let's round to the nearest hundredth. Here's our setup. Okay, sine 72 over 6 is equal to sine of B over 4. How many had that set up correctly? Good. Cross multiply, divide. Inverse sine. So angle B is the inverse sine of 4 times sine of 72. So again, I cross multiply there, divide here, and then because of this sine, there we go. I have to undo that. So that's how those are linked together. Okay. So angle B is how much? 39.35 degrees. And then I wrote it up there at the top. Now, angle C is what I should find next, right? Because I have two angles. So I just have to add 72 plus 39.35, subtract that from 180. Okay. So what is it? 68.65. So here's the thing that's why that's important and why I don't want you to use trig functions to find the angle. This guarantees that all three angles add up to 180 degrees exactly. Okay? Based on how we rounded. It can't be 180.01 degrees. It can't be 179.99 degrees. It has to equal 180 exactly. Now, the last thing that I need to find is side C. So now we go back to doing what we did for the quiz.
Sin 72 over 6 equals sin 68.65 over 6.
Sine, yes, sine. You're very funny. Now, here's the thing. Notice that I used the original information again. Could you have put sine of 39.35 over 4 instead of this right here? You could have done that. But that makes the assumption that you've done everything right up to that point. And if for some reason you made a mistake and you carry that wrong answer through to find the next part of the answer, you will have made a mistake there again. So that's why I encourage you to use the information that you're given instead of the information that you found, just in case. Okay? That being said, if you use the new information to come up with your next answer and you've done that correctly, you will still get the right answer. Okay? So it's just kind of a preventative measure just in case. All right? Now, since I'm now finding a side, cross multiply and divide, just like we did before. So we've got 6 times sine of 68.65 divided by sine of 72 degrees. That's 5.88 centimeters. How many had that? Okay, good. So that's all we're doing today. So the only difference is that now instead of finding a missing side all the time, we may need to find a missing angle first, and then eventually might have to find a missing side. Okay?
That's easy though.